Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. That's the quote I'm going with. I usually spend some time, not much, looking for a quote that I think is going to relate to what I feel like talking about, or I'll do it afterwards and record it afterwards. Or I will have found something in the in-between time that I know I want to use as a quote, and that will spark the rest of the episode's content. And for this, I was looking for quotes on loss, on grief, and ended up going for a quote on change. Maybe that sets the tone a little bit for this episode. Bling.
I used to think if I couldn't find hope, I should just let it all go. I used to think if I couldn't make dreams come true, I should just let them all go. When life seems impossible, look from every angle, change just one little thing. When life feels intolerable, find your true source of love. Concentrate, focus on love. Center and focus on love. Dedicate, focus on love.
All right. It's been another year plus. It's funny the similarities into what's going on in my life when I podcast. It really hammers home to me that I use this podcast as therapy for myself. So much has gone on since the last episode, and I meant to do an episode sooner. It was last March or May, but it must have been March. So a year and a bit was the last one. I got a kitten in June of last year. And I mean, that's honestly why I haven't done an episode. It's a big reason. Because having a kitten is a lot of fucking work. Also, she chewed the microphone cord, so I had to get a new microphone. She also peed in every single plant I have, I think. But she's cute. Her name is Winona, which is an indigenous term for firstborn daughter. I'd been wanting a kitten for a while for Belle, because Belle was getting older with the way we got her. Didn't know how old she was, but she was probably 15, 16, something like that. So she's getting older, and she was always an outdoor cat. And for the last 5 years, I've lived in an apartment, 3rd floor, where she can't be an outdoor cat. She's a patio cat. And I could see the change in her, mentally, physically. Less engaged, bored. She settled in. She settled in for sure. She got used to all day was sleep, eat, cuddle. But that spark in her eye was not there, was dissipating. And I felt bad. You know, there's some moments, I've always had pets and I'll always have pets, but there's some moments where I remember that this is an animal that I'm keeping in a house. And so I wanted some stimulus for her. I had 2 hopes. Either A, some maternal instincts would kick in and she'd just sort of raise this kitten, have something to do, be cute, be lovey, or B, she'd just have somebody around, something around, keep her on her toes. And it all sort of happened really fast. I got my baby cousin, she's 19, she's 20 now, she was 19 at the time, a unit in my apartment. And as a thank you, her mom said that her friend had some kittens and sent me some pictures and asked if I wanted one. And I thought, well, shit. Why not? I'd been looking for kittens, or not actively pursuing, but toying with the idea of getting a kitten for probably a year or two prior to that. And it felt right, so I did it. And I got Winky cat. Wonky, really. And that was fun. That was a lot. It's been a lot. It is a lot. I don't remember having a kitten in the house. I know I did growing up. Yeah, that was a lot. She fell off the 3rd floor patio after only having her for like a month or two. But she was fine. But the energy, it was a lot. I've always had the plan. I think I've mentioned it on here that before I have a child, my partner at the time will get a dog, and we'll make sure that we both can take care of a dog, get up in the morning and take it for a walk, get out at night, somebody home, no leaving it alone for more than 8 straight hours, whatever it is. Like, take care of something that's a little demanding, that needs you, that needs your help. And having lived with Belle, the most low maintenance cat ever, I foolishly forgot that kittens aren't cats. And I got this kitten, and oh my God, I didn't sleep straight through a night for like 2 months, 3 months. And those worries when she fell off the patio, all of a sudden I was like, I'm never going to let you back on the patio again. And I wasn't angry, I was just scared. And I'm like, man, if my child ever went and got hurt doing something, I would never want my child doing that. And I realized just how much a kitten was a little glimpse into that parenthood. I guess it goes kitten, dog, baby. I'm battling some sort of sickness. I don't know what it is. I haven't been able to shake it for what feels like ever. But some of those feelings are residual from what I'm getting towards here. But if I sound weird, or if the voice is in and out, you know me, I'll podcast through the flu or through a cold or whatever this is. Sore throat, sinuses, just terrible. COVID cold. And having Winnie was great, and it's been great. As crazy as it's been, it was a nice jolt of energy into my life and into Belle's. Belle's weight had probably fluctuated a bit in the last couple years. And there would just be things I'd notice with her, and I'd be like, oh man, she's getting old. I'm not ready. And then, yeah, Winnie came in, and it was so cool to see Belle, who never was interested in playing or any of that kind of stuff. Just Winnie would play with everything. Backpack strap hanging down. She'd swat at it, run around. Anything she could find. A leaf falls off a plant. It's the best thing in the world. And Belle would see this, and then Belle would walk out, and after she was done playing with some random object in the house, Belle would give it a sniff, give it a little tap with her paw, try to see what was going on. Where was that fun coming from? And I saw it in her coat pretty quickly. Belle's coat got a lot better. Her weight got a lot more stable, healthy. And after a little while, I really saw it in her eyes. Just a little bit of spark, that little stimulation there. I felt like she was glazing over before that. There was just nothing that she was really looking at or for. And after injecting Winnie into the house, she was alert again. And it took a bit for them to get on. Belle didn't, it was weird. Winnie would chase Belle around, and Belle would like run and hiss, but then like run around and then turn it on her and chase her around and then run to her. cat tree and scratch that and then run back at Winnie, but then Winnie would chase her and she would hiss again. I don't think she really knew how to play or what it was or if she wanted to. And things were pretty good. Again, I got Winnie in June. And yeah, things settled into a routine. They were such different cats, but it worked. Both like to cuddle, both like to sleep. And then a month ago, on March 30th, I woke up to like a scream. It was a meow. It was a cat, but it was a scream. It was a sound I'd never heard before. I woke up at 6:48, and I thought that there was a different cat in the house because it didn't sound like Belle or Winnie, but it was something was going on. And I got out of bed and I ran out to the living room trying to see what was going on. It was still dark enough outside that I couldn't really see, and by the time I turned a light on, I saw that Belle was on her side. Basically taking her last breaths. And that was so fast because it seemed like any of my concerns from a couple years prior had gotten better. She seemed in much better health, physically and mentally. And I mean, even that night, I'd fallen asleep on the couch, and around like 4:30, she woke me up. She was sleeping on my chest, and she got up and sort of stood on my chest and moved me to bed, as she does. And I got up and moved to bed, just like any other night. And yeah, I mean, I knew that something was wrong, and I knew that it wasn't good, and I just quickly grabbed my phone and called the 24-hour emergency vet that's closest to me just to make sure, like, can you see my cat right now? And yeah, they were like, yeah, get her in. And I probably, threw some clothes on, grabbed my stuff. It's probably 6:51. Been about 3 minutes since I woke up. And I remember picking up Belle to take her down to the car. And I knew already that probably wasn't going to change, whether I got her there or not. And the vet's not that far away. And I drove as fast as I could. And I can remember all of it, all of that morning, all of that day, really. Like, I could walk myself minute by minute through it all. But it doesn't quite feel real. And I got to the vet maybe a couple minutes after 7. So it's been like max like 15 minutes have elapsed since she sort of screamed out, since something happened. And I understand that this got I got into this pretty quickly. I'm going to get away from the heaviness soon, hopefully, but the last little bit there for myself to share is once I parked at the vet and I picked her up to run her in, I could tell that was it. It was a different feeling than when I had brought her to the car. And that is such a, I don't know, strange feeling, a strong feeling. You know, we go through lives and we feel things all day, every day, and highs and lows, and, you know, there's not going to be too many, if any, other moments in my life that I go to pick up my cat and can feel that she is not there anymore. And that was such a wave of emotion. I ran her in through the front doors, and the vet was great. One of the doctors was running towards me as I'm running in and took her out of my hands and ran her back, and I collapsed on the curb outside, and they obviously had to confirm that I consent to CPR and all that, and they did that and tried. They tried for a while, but as I already knew, I mean, I spent that time hoping that something would change, but I knew. I you know. But there's a surreal, eerily, hauntingly comforting feeling having gone through the day and moment that I've been scared of for years. It's kind of like, well, what could possibly happen today that'll be worse? I guess today has to be better. And so, Belle, I love you. I miss you. Thank you. And so I've been forced recently to confront my feelings and maybe more aptly my fears with love, both romantic and platonic. And it scares me. I don't think that I have it in me to love properly. I never saw it growing up. I never felt it. My mom had no friends, had no family. To me, family were deserters. My mom and her sisters deserted each other. My mom and her mom deserted each other. My dad was adopted and family was strange for him as well. My mom had a new boyfriend every year growing up. And I never learned how to communicate or how to deal with ups and downs. It feels pretty ingrained in me that things don't last. I had a few best friends, loved them all, but they always moved. Even when we were moving once a year, one thing I thank my mom for is we always stayed close enough. I always went to the same elementary, same high school. But my best friend seemed to leave to a few cities over, other side of the country, whatever it was. Something happened and they had to leave. And so I have no confidence in relationships lasting. And because of that, I hold back. I stay reserved. I don't give all of myself. And when it comes time to give more because I'm receiving more, I get scared. I get anxious. The cliche is that it's better to have loved and lost than to have not loved at all. And to that I say, yeah, fucking right. I say, I don't believe you. I say, not to me. And when I say these things, I'm not sure I believe myself, but I do know that that's how I feel. My whole life I've been afraid of loss in all aspects. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of being bad at something. I'm paranoid of death and the loss of life, my life and others. I'm afraid of losing games. I'm just afraid of not being good enough. And I don't care about the inverse. I don't care about winning. I don't care about success. I don't care about looking good in front of others. I just don't want to look bad. Again, I'm afraid to. And it's that fear that holds me back in every damn aspect of my life. I want to open my own business. I've got a 30-page business plan done. I know it could work and that it probably would work, but the fear of it not far, far outweighs any type of success for me, because I don't care about the success. And I want to fall in love. I want to move in with a partner and start a family, but the fear of that relationship ending, the fear of losing that someday, whether it be during life or due to loss of life, is way too scary for me. It's paralyzing. I want to have a big friend group with a lot of people I care about and that care about me, but it's daunting. It's a lot of people to not look bad to. It's a lot of people to try not to lose. With the ending of a relationship recently and the passing of my much beloved cat happening in the same month, I've found myself wondering why I would want to put myself in these positions again. Because these relationships will all end one way or another. And when people talk about the highs that come from these relationships, the love and the happiness they feel, I just can't relate. At least not in the way I think I'm supposed to. Love is fear for me. Just like excitement is anxiety for me. Every time I'm out with friends and I'm having a really good time, it hits me in that moment that this will end one day. And I get depressed. And the best moments of my romantic relationships, the most peaceful, the sitting there after having just made dinner together, just relaxing, just being, it hits me. This isn't permanent. And I start to panic inside. And I realize that I'm broken. I'm just not sure the fix is possible. But I am going to try. I am going to try. I feel like I'm at the point of having had pushed through my mental health issues enough to believe they're normal. That leaves me now living in some hellscape because I'm used to it. I'm used to something wrong. And I guess just back to being fearful of all kinds of relationships because I'm afraid to lose them on an existential mortality level, but also just in a people move, love fizzles, things change level. I want to expand on why and when that started, maybe. I mentioned my mom having new boyfriends every year, which was from when I was like 10 to 17. And some of those guys were absolute trash cans, just abusive pieces of garbage, canisters of garbage. And some of them were absolute gold. I know my dad was my dad, and there's love. And my stepdad, who was around from when I was like 4 or 5 to 9-ish, he was really, there, a father for me for a bit. A lot of who I am comes from him. That was traumatic, I'm sure, being a kid going through a loud and messy divorce. And then there was another boyfriend when I was maybe 13 or 14 that I really loved. That I remember I called Dad a couple times, which I hadn't done since my stepdad, and never did, non-jokingly at least, after. But he was still gone pretty quick. And it's just more to say that the people I've cared about have never stayed long. My closest neighbors growing up, family downstairs, was also a single mom, and she had 3 kids, and they were from Newfoundland. She and my mom drank a lot together, and I played a ton with those kids. One was a year or 2 older, one a year younger, and the other was a couple years younger. I remember, and keep in mind this is 2001, I tied a plastic shovel to a long piece of string and hung it out the kitchen window, because if you sort of tossed it out or swung it, it would hit their kitchen window downstairs, and then someone would come out onto their patio. And that was the way of checking if they were home and if somebody wanting to play. And that was for, I don't know how long this was for. A year or 2, a couple of years. It seems so long when you're that age. Big portion of your life. But they moved back east. And then there's school, elementary school at least. I peaked. It's terrible. I peaked as a fucking 12-year-old. And I didn't even do anything to earn it. So to go to high school and not be a social kid, I just stuck to my smaller groups until athletics pulled me out of that a bit. To elaborate a bit, like, everyone liked me in elementary school. And listen, that's not a brag. That's not something I walk around with pride over, being a cool child. But it's important to this thought because what that meant is there was always people who would make the effort for me. They always wanted to talk. They always wanted to hang out. They wanted to play. The girls wanted to date, whatever that meant at the time. Holding hands and hugging after school. And the problem is I never had to work for that. They just wanted to be around me, and I don't even think it's because they like me, because nobody really knew each other on any sort of level back then. It was all superficial. But because of that, I never learned how to approach others or how to take that kind of initiative. And then my nature being what it was, being an angry kid from a broken and breaking home, I didn't care to make those efforts or learn those things. To this point, people never stuck around anyway. And maybe I thought that was my fault. But then, you go from small elementary to big high school and you just get lost. And so a couple of years went by. I made some new friends, was close to them. And then hockey had me with a new group. And high school is just this carousel of people in and out, and that cycle continued. My aunt and cousin who now lives in my building, they lived with us off and on a couple years. But again, my mom and my aunts had a falling out, and I didn't really see them again. And they were both like sisters to me. Jody's 9 years older than me and lived with us when I was 10 or 11. And again at like 13, 14. And then gone by the time I was 15, 16, something like that. And Nay is 10 years younger, but they left too. A lot of these situations also had me taking care of people. I remember during my mom's divorce, there'd be a lot of times where she would just be sobbing in the living room at night, and I'd come out and try to console her, not really understanding much. I know I felt protective over Jody and Danae. I got in a lot of fights in school, but only with the shitheads, only with the bullies, because I was a bit of a shy weirdo, so I tried to look out for the same. I love shy people because then I don't feel as shy. And I guess where I'm going with that is caretaking and people pleasing, or being there when no one else is, stepping up when someone has to, has become a bit of a trait for me. And not consciously, but that's a trait that has crept its way into my romantic relationships through my 20s. Having partners that were a little lost or broken or whatever seemed to work. And hey, everyone I've dated has been amazing people. And I'm not trying to say anything about them with that. I'm certainly more fucked up than all of them. But what I'm trying to say is I use those relationships to bring me back to maybe a comfortable spot. Not having to divulge too much of myself, staying closed off and just working with others on what they had going on. And that's not healthy, obviously. That doesn't work. And I need to fix that now. I recognize that. I didn't get parenting. I didn't get that looking out for you love the way I needed. And I've always tried to be that for others. And I think I'm realizing now, as much as I'm not sure I'll be able to accept it or believe it, I really just want to trust that there is someone that wants to care for me. Like, I think I want to find somebody who is maybe a little more put together than me, that can share with me their routines and the things that they've found success with and wants to grow with me. And that seems so obvious, but I think I've always tried to do that for others and lead the way, and not in a I know better way, because I don't, and I don't feel I do, but just in a maybe try this, it worked for me at times way. And I think I just need something a little more even. Something that's a little more of a team. And I want some direction, I guess. Losing Belle and losing an adult presence has been strange. I know she was a cat, but that cat was looking after me. That cat was taking care of me. And she did my entire 20s. I'm 30 now. And I know I've got to do it without her, and that's scary. She left me with this kitten too. So not only do I have to look after myself, I got to teach this psycho cat things that I was hoping Belle would. I always said, and the crazy thing is I said this to somebody a couple days before she passed, that I wanted Belle to meet my first child, if and when I have one. I wanted her to pass on some sort of energy, to instill some spiritual, unyet understood values in that kid. And now I gotta maybe have a kid that isn't gonna get that from her. The other funny thing there is with Winnie. In the days after Belle's passing, I was so broken. Just barely existing on my couch, face never dry. Winnie jumped up on my chest and she licked some tears off my nose. And it was cute and it was nice. And it took me back through the last decade of all the emotional times I've had and coming home to Belle and her just knowing whenever I wasn't doing good and being there for me, taking care of me, and me crying tears onto her fur. So with Winnie here with me in this state, licking tears away, I hit her with, it's just you and me now. And I croaked out you gotta take care of me now. And that's because I need that. And it's hard to not feel that right now, having had a relationship end and my cat pass just a couple months after turning 30. I just feel quite alone. I've been seeing my grandmother every 2 weeks for the last couple months, and I think that's really important. That's a type of relationship I haven't felt in a long time, maybe ever, especially with her. And it kind of checks that box, but I'm trying my best. And at times it feels like it's not really enough, but I'm not gonna stop trying my best. And if any of this is relatable to anyone listening, your best isn't going to always be enough, but it's all you can do. And you're worth trying your best for. Because at the end of the day, you're all you got. So take care of yourself. I always make a tea. I mean, I could leave that sentence right there. I always make a tea before I do a podcast. I usually have a tea and a water going and sometimes another beverage. And I think in the last couple episodes I started saying what kind of tea I was having, but I'm going to do that as a rule going forward. And so today, again, feeling sick a bit, I'm having a roasted dandelion root and a nettle leaf. And it's delicious. It's like drinking dirt. And these teas are from Traditional Medicinals. Shout out them. I've also got like a echinacea from them. And these tea bags have little messages on them. And these 2 tea bags I have here say, "Are not flowers the stars of the earth?" Like I get the sentiment, but it doesn't quite do it for me. And then I've got, "There is pleasure in the pathless woods." And that one does do it for me. Because that's just it. That's just life. No matter where you think you're going, you don't know for sure. Song, always do songs. And I mean, over the last year, I've had numerous ones in my head that I thought was going to be the one for the next podcast. And then I didn't podcast, and then I didn't podcast, and then I didn't podcast. And up until pretty recently, I thought it was going to be Blind by Hercules and the Love Affair. Blind by Hercules and Love Affair. But it's not going to be that because I'm a little sadder now. But the National released an album about a week ago. And it's pretty good. Here's what I'll say. I really enjoyed it on my first listen. I was also just in an amazing place for my first listen that it was always going to be good. But so many times an artist can put out a new album and it just doesn't sound right the first time, or it hits weird, or it's like, I'm going to have to give it a second and third. This just worked on the first listen. And I think that's a good thing because it's very classic them. It's got the national sound. It like already sounds like it could be of different eras. But I'm thinking now that that's not going to be a good thing for sort of the staying power of some of the songs. I think that they'll get lost even quicker. That being said, Tropic Morning News off of their newest album is already one of their top 10, maybe top 5 songs, and that's the song of now. That's the song for now. Put it on. What a joy. I was telling somebody that, you know, there's songs that you hear that make you want to dance. There's songs you hear that make you want to, like, shake your hips. Songs that make you want to bob your head. Songs that make you want to just send your hair all crazy. There's songs that make you want to just sit still and listen. Songs that make you want to twerk. Tropic Morning News is a song that makes me want to just ugly dance and just sort of jerk my body around in whatever way I'm feeling. And I think that is quite a compliment. Isn't it fun to be back? Doesn't everybody feel good and happy now? I've got Girl Guide cookies here, which I don't know if those are everywhere in the world or if that's just a Canada thing. They're not as good as they used to be. Growing up, they were crazy. Now they're all right. If you know, you know. Yeah, that's what I've been dealing with. Life. I've been trying to drink kombucha for my gut, because I probably don't do anything for my gut. So, see how that goes. Stanley Cup playoffs are on. I've watched more hockey since these playoffs started than I have in probably like 2 years. Like, I don't think I really watched the playoffs too much the year before, and I just don't. They've made it so hard to watch hockey that I didn't watch any regular season hockey, and it feels good. It feels nice. It feels like that some of that love for the sport is coming back, which I guess ebbs and flows as I age, but that's been good. When he's trying to sleep and having trouble getting comfortable and staring at me, so I think I should maybe end this here. And so I will. Thank you for listening. I hope that something in there was relatable, or was perspective, or served any sort of purpose. I'm going to work on taking care of myself, and I hope that you take care of yourself. All my relations.
You can have it all if you learn what all is. You can make your dreams come true. You can find bliss. Just remember it ebbs, and remember it will flow back.